Got it. Cool.
There we go. Cool.
All right.
Welcome back once again to Bamboo Batu on YouTube. Bamboo Dialogues. Today we are in discussion with Everest Holmes from North Carolina, who works at National Bamboo, where they farm bamboo commercially. And we're going to have a lot to talk about. If you like hearing about bamboo, don't forget, please, to click the like button, subscribe to my channel. If you want to know more, you can visit my website, bamboobatu.com. Hundreds of free articles, lots of free content every week. Appreciate that. And let's get into it. So, Everest, you and I met in Germany a couple months ago at the Bamboo Expo in Dortmund. We all had a super fun time. Bamboo people from all around the world were there, mostly Europeans, but some couple of Americans, quite a few Asians and South Americans, and it was just a great time of networking and sharing knowledge and information and enthusiasm about bamboo. And so it's a real pleasure to have you on the program here. And I
Yeah.
think we're going to have a lot to talk about. Bamboo farming in the US is a real interesting topic, and National Bamboo is one of the leaders in that space, as far as I know. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into the bamboo business and how you started working for National Bamboo?
Sure. All right. So, my history with bamboo goes back to 2010, where I was attending Warren Wilson College. I actually have a degree, Bachelor's of the Arts in Outdoor Leadership, which is kind of education and in an outdoor setting, a lot of recreational adventure education. And but while I was there, the school has a triad of education, work, and service. So I was working for the school on the garden crew, and we were actually producing a lot of organic produce for the cafeteria. And there is a bamboo grove there, a timber bamboo grove, and Robert Young is the common name. And it's a beautiful yellow timber bamboo, edible shoots, and I just got captivated with it. I wanted to learn more and more about it. It was just such an impressive plant. And we, used the poles in the garden for trellises. We were harvesting shoots, selling them in at a farmer's market. And I decided that I wanted to take on a project of managing that grove and trying to get it more productive and utilize it. So in my research, I found Haiku Bamboo Nursery. They were down in Hendersonville, North Carolina, so not very far from where I was, and started to talk with KG, did a tour with him, had a few private meetings with him, and saw his work farming bamboo on a small scale, I think about 10 acres. But he is a master at a craftsman, bamboo craftsman, and just had a wealth of knowledge. His teacher slash mentor was this Japanese agricultural expert who wrote a manual on bamboo farming in Japan. So very knowledgeable guy, very interesting work he's doing, and that really spurred my passion. So I started, working with that bamboo, and then over the next few years, I graduated 2012, and my folks purchased a piece of property here, and we have built a family farmstead of our own. And in fact, we have 1 acre of bamboo, and that's when I found only Moso. And so, we purchased about an acre of Moso bamboo from only Moso, and planted it, and it's growing really well. It's in its fifth year now, and we had a really bad frost actually this spring that knocked it back quite a bit. So that was a little disappointing, but also have Henan growing here from National Bamboo, and we're able to see the difference as well. So I definitely see that Henan is more cold hardy than Moso is. That's interesting. And but yeah, the Moso's doing really well. I've been farming bamboo, myself, and learning a lot of techniques. And I had a time working for only Moso about 2 years, where I was their quality control specialist. So, not technically an agronomist by degree, so I can't call myself that, but I was doing a lot of technical consulting and field consulting, and soil sampling, and sending those out, and analyzing the soil structure, the the irrigation systems and you know, looking at soil samples, soil analyses actually, to
Really
see.
hands-on stuff with the bamboo
Yeah,
planting.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and traveling to farms and troubleshooting a lot of, bamboo has diseases and it has pests, and we have to figure out what factors are causing that and how we can, help, grow it without, uh, without using herbicides, pesticides, and things like that, because we do want to utilize this crop in a way that is, healthy for the planet.
Yeah,
So
people do kind of exaggerate, and I think we've all been guilty of that at one
yeah.
time or another, exaggerating the amazing properties of bamboo. It does grow incredibly fast. It's super resilient,
Mhm.
but yeah, it's not 100% free of disease, bugs, pests, and everything. Things happen. Nature has a way of, you know, bringing bugs into your garden no matter what you do.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
there's better and worse ways of dealing with that. More natural and more chemical ways of dealing with it. And so yeah, it's great to
Yeah,
work with it. Yeah, and
absolutely.
find
Absolutely.
find those solutions.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never seen a field wiped out by, there was one field actually wiped out by crickets or
Yeah,
grasshoppers. I saw that one time, but insects, they sense a sick plant, and insects that are plant eaters, not predator insects. Predator insects are the good insects because they eat bad bugs.
right.
But any kind of vegetarian insect is only attracted to a plant that's sending off signals that it's sick. And there's science on that. It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah,
So
that's I tell people that a lot. If they're having a bug problem, there's a really good chance that it's not a bug problem, it's a soil problem,
it's a
and
soil problem.
it's a
Yeah.
systemic issue. Yeah, under the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even environmental. I think in that case it was asper planted in a hard, a climate that wasn't warm enough, tropical enough
Mm.
for it. So the plants were struggling. And also, soil issues as well. I mean, everything compounds, and all of these factors play together in ways that is hard to measure. But
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah,
It's not a straight line from this causes this. When you're dealing with natural
yeah,
environmental influences, there's so many pieces of the puzzle, and you
yeah,
can just isolate one thing, and yeah, because the weather is always changing. There's one part of your property, the soil's got a little bit more of this and a little bit less of that, and yeah,
yeah,
it makes that kind of work really, really difficult, but super
yeah.
interesting at the same time.
It is.
But
Um,
that's
yeah, to
interesting.
continue that story of how I ended up at National Bamboo too.
Right.
So before I started working with Only Moso, I actually found National Bamboo online, in part of my looking into the industry, looking into the concept. And I called them up and I talked with Jamie Lelever on the phone, who's one of the founders.
Yeah, good guy.
Jamie's a great guy. And at that time he was like, I was like, yo, can I work for you, man? And he's like, well, we're kind of just starting up, and this is 2012 or something, and I don't really have anything for you right now, but yeah, I'll keep you in mind, and so I was like, ah, shoot, but oh well, all right. So then and then I went on and did my thing, and started farming bamboo and working as a field support for Only Moso, and then after my time at Only Moso, I found an opportunity to manage a very large hemp farm. Well, not large, but medium scale hemp farm. But we were going to grow pecans and other things too, like a very diverse kind of farming operation.
North
And the
Carolina.
hemp, everyone working for this investor was, like, I don't know if you should get into hemp. It's a little bit of a, expensive, and also volatile, and the market isn't, is fluctuating a lot, and it's saturated, and sure enough, I mean, we grew 25 acres of hemp. We harvested it. It was beautiful. And we're planting a little bamboo here and there too.
Is
But
this in North Carolina also?
yeah, this was
Yeah.
in North Carolina, out in Warsaw, North Carolina.
Okay.
which is by the coast, about 45 minutes inland. Um, so still practicing with my farming and agricultural knowledge, and driving tractors and doing foliar sprays, and then we got into the processing and the lab work and extractions and different products like cosmetic and consumable. But the market in hemp just crashed, and that unfortunately that didn't exactly work out quite like we'd hoped it would. Saturated market, price crash, all those things. Um, and so at this point the farm is kind of just sitting there, and I moved on again. I started to work with David Benefield at Brightside Bamboo as
Okay.
his landscape manager. And so we were doing installations for, usually typically in an urban environment, but for, contained really well, and or in an actual container, like a feedstock tank, that was insulated, and we would plant a few bamboo plants in there as a hedge, or ornamental purposes really. And so that was great. And then we were also doing removals, big market in people that are like, my grandpa planted this or my neighbor planted this and it's just growing wild and I need to get rid of it. So I got to really see that aspect of it as well, which was very interesting. We were digging trenches, containment trenches, and yeah, Brightside Bamboos had years of success with that. So I can tell you guys for a fact that even with the large timber species, all you need is a very narrow 4-inch wide trench that goes. It starts out at about 18 inches deep, and then over time it'll kind of like fill in a little bit and even itself out. But the walls need to be straight. That's a really important thing about the trenches. The walls need to be totally vertical, because if they slope in, then those rhizomes can dive. But if
Yeah.
they're vertical, the rhizomes, they tend to not really, even with the big species, the runner rhizome does not go much deeper than 3-4 inches deep, at the most maybe 6,
Mhm.
until it hits a barrier. So if it hits a rock or if it hits a plastic barrier, then it's going to die. But if it's an open air pruning trench, it will hit that trench and then shoot up. And
Yeah.
so you can actually, part of the maintenance of a trench is you have to go through every once in a while, maybe once every year or two, and clip out those rhizomes that are trying to dive down or jump the fence. So
Yeah. Super good advice. Yeah. The containment trench is the way to go for sure. Yeah. 4 inches. Yeah. I usually recommend, yeah, bigger than that, at least 6 or 12
Mhm.
inches even. Um,
Yeah, sure, you could absolutely,
just it's easier to get in there with your clippers and stuff and to maintain it. But then
Mhm.
it's also kind of a tripping hazard too if you make the trench too big and you're
Yeah,
walking along the grove and stick your foot in the trench.
yeah,
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 that's the way to go for
exactly.
sure. Because those barriers are good, but like exactly like you said, the rhizome hits the barrier and then it'll like want to go under it. And
Yeah.
the barrier will hold the bamboo back for a long time, but eventually the bamboo will prevail. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of time. It might take 20 years or something, but it
Mhm.
might only take 5 or 6 or 7 years. So
Mhm.
um,
Absolutely.
and the trench,
Yeah.
yeah, there's no plastic or something like that going in the ground either.
Mhm.
So I'm a huge
Yeah.
fan of the trench method for sure. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah, you brought up some super interesting points about I mean just the hemp farming, um and how, yeah, there's a lot of talk about hemp, and I was actually promoting hemp quite a bit a long time ago. This is maybe 20 years ago. I was selling hemp products and promoting hemp cultivation in the US, and because the industry never really caught on to be manufacturing things from hemp, that made it really hard to grow hemp and have anything to make out of it. But then in the last, more recently, in the last 5 or 8 years or so, all these different oil, CBD oil products and whatnot have come up, and I think
yeah.
that's probably 90% or more of the market for hemp farmers in the U.S. right now. And so if that market gets
Big chunk.
glutted, then you don't really have too many alternatives, because there's not like a paper mill that's going to take your hemp, or
Yeah.
a company that's going to buy the seeds and press it for hemp seed oil or something, even though there's so many great products you can do with it. And so that's pretty similar to bamboo. Like if you're growing bamboo in the US, you can harvest the shoots and sell those. It's real easy to make stuff with bamboo shoots, culinary uses, pickled
Mhm.
shoots, fermented shoots, and so on. But there's not a paper mill at this point that's going to buy your bamboo and do something with it. There's not a textile mill that's going to turn your bamboo into clothing. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the challenge for bamboo growers. So
Yeah.
what's National Bamboo's strategy when it comes to that?
Yeah, sure thing. So yeah, after my time with Brightside Bamboo, I moved back to the Appalachian Mountains here in my straw bale home with my fiance and our son, and then I got a call from David out of the blue. I mean, from Jamie out of the blue, National Bamboo, and he's like, "Hey, I've got an opportunity to farm. Well, a client wants to farm 500 acres of bamboo, and so this is the Alexander family, and they are down in South Carolina, near a little south of Anderson. So on the paper mill subject, National Bamboo has been investing in the research on the paper pulp industry. And I was actually just a few days ago listening in on the report that they have given, the most recent report on their research. And it was very exciting because it's looking good for bamboo pulp. Now, like you said, there's no pulp mill yet. That's going to be a $20 million investment or something like that.
Mm,
Um, Perhaps more, could be 100 million. But we do need a small pulp mill, and we need it to be near the paper manufacturer. So yeah, the pulp mill and the paper manufacturing are going to be separate. They could be kind of on the same, property or whatever, but yeah. So we need an investor. There needs to be some private equity put into this, but there's a lot of signs that it's going to happen, mostly because there is a big economic and environmental pressure to for paper mills to stop using forests, to stop cutting down forests for single-use tissue paper and hygiene paper.
right.
So the consortium that National Bamboo is a part of, it's part of NC State University, and it's called the SAFI, or Sustainable Alternative Fibers Initiative. And this research they've been doing, it's incredible. They're looking at bamboo, miscanthus, wheat straw, and they're actually not really looking at hemp too much. A little bit. They're definitely looking at it. North Carolina is one of the biggest hemp fiber states as well. But yeah, they're looking at bamboo pretty heavily for hygiene paper, so tissue paper, facial wipes, bamboo. In fact, hennin, because we're part of the consortium, we have been growing, pretty much exclusively growing hennin at this point, for its characteristics, its ideal characteristics. Hennin is looking to be a very ideal fiber for these hygiene papers. In fact, it has in tissue papers, you have softwood fibers and you have hardwood fibers, and they have different qualities. So in paper, you typically need a combination of softwood, hardwood fibers. Wheat straw, for example, is going to have very low fiber quality. It's more on the softwood type of fiber. And then but bamboo, hennin bamboo has everything. It has a great mix, a great balance already. You could actually do 100% bamboo paper, and it will create a good quality paper. Um, so so the investment in the paper mill it's a chicken and the egg moment for sure.
Yeah.
But this country is chomping at the bit for a new crop. And one of the things that the SAFI has done is a life cycle assessment on growing the bamboo. How much do we need? How close? The transportation is a huge factor. So transporting that fiber to the mill. And so, yeah, all the growers for the paper pulp bamboo industry are going to need to be in proximity to the mill. But this Alexander family that we contracted with, we planted 25 acres, first installment of their 500-acre property, is right in that region. So that was exciting. They were very excited about that as well. They're also excited about tea and the silica, but we can talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
The paper pulp industry for bamboo is going to need, starting out, around 20,000, 21,000 acres. But it's doable. There is that land in this area. And there's people are growing corn, wheat, soy, commodity crops, and pine. And so we're looking at, mostly looking at cut over pine land for bamboo, reforesting pine land, because pine foresters, they're not making very good premiums. There's a beetle that is invasive and putting pressure on the pine. It's a pest, and it's causing devastation. Especially, it's not as much out here yet, but it's more in the Pacific Northwest. But it's moving, and so that is probably driven by climate change, warming climate. And not enough cold winter snaps to kill off the insects, and keep them in check, and as well as just more stress on the trees and from the climate change. And pine, the prices of pine are going up, and also it's affecting their bottom line, these growers. So they're, we talk with pine farmers a lot, or pine growers a lot, who are interested in, if they're hearing about bamboo, they want to get into it. And I mean, I see a future where there's mills in a lot of the southeastern United States. I could see a future in which the economic and environmental pressures create a need for all of these mills, all of these paper mills to use bamboo pulp. So SAFI Consortium is looking at just replacing 30% of the tissue paper with bamboo, and 21,000 acres, a pretty large investment, but it's possible. It's absolutely possible. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, that's a big chicken and egg dilemma right there for sure, because nobody wants to build a factory if there's only going to be a few hundred acres of bamboo to provide feedstock for it. And planting a couple thousand acres of bamboo is pretty risky if there's not a factory to sell it to. So trying to solve both of those riddles at the same time.
Yeah.
And then
One good thing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, the other thing is that when you plant those few hundred or few thousand acres of bamboo, you still have to wait 5 or 6 years or so before you have a good mature bamboo crop that you can start harvesting. Once it's mature, as we know, you can harvest it continuously without having to replant it the way you do with trees. But there is that runway period where you're waiting to get any kind of return on the investment. So it's a tricky thing to do, but the potential is there for sure, like you said.
Yeah. The bamboo, the hennin, the idea that hennin could become an alternative fiber is really exciting, because it is a regenerative crop. It is sustainable, And so that actually part of the stimulus to get this going is we discussed this a lot at the expo is the idea that we are helping the climate. So we are so even we talk about this long term to harvest. Well, compare that to pine. You're waiting 25 years
Yeah.
with pine and you're not getting as much of a return. And really, a lot of times with this stuff, it comes down to the bottom line, the return on investment. And what the SAFI consortium has showed is that Henan bamboo can produce a better IRR than pine in a shorter amount of time. So that right there shows, and it's showing a better return on investment than corn and these other commodity crops, wheat. So farmers are getting like maybe 200 something odd dollars per acre of income on these commodity crops. And you know so that too is a little bit of like because a lot of times in the industry the bamboo industry we hear these big numbers like you can make $10,000 an acre on bamboo.
Right.
And that's not going to be the case if you're growing large scale for commercial fiber. But it's going to be more like in that 200 $300 per acre range, maybe $400 an acre on the fiber, on just the fiber though, because as we can manage a field for shoots, we can manage a field for more quality, high value timbers, and so with the fiber, it's not looking like a big money making scheme, but it serves a really good purpose that is going to be stabilizing soil, letting soil rest, rejuvenating topsoil, organic matter content, creating a green space, because animals will come into a bamboo forest and habitat. And so it's never have to clear cut. We're talking about strip harvesting on a schedule, rotation, so that when you harvest one strip, you can allow it to come back with plenty of time, so that you're not damaging the rhizome, the integrity of the plant itself.
So
And
that's a pretty interesting point right there about the harvesting methods for when you have a pulp, when you're growing it for pulp for paper, is the strip harvesting technique, which is pretty interesting. So as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but you would have you'd break the farm into like rows, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, something like that. And each row, each year you would go and harvest all the rows number one. So like every third row, and then you come back the next year and do every row number two. And then so they have 3 years for the bamboo to grow back, which once it's mature, it should be good enough. That's plenty of time for it to fill back in.
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen a bambussoides field, a very large bambussoides field. The power company came in and cut a huge strip under the power lines, and then they tried to churn it up with these big tines. They actually like broke 2 sets of big industrial, tillers. But it came back, and by the second year, the shoots were back to the normal size. Third year, it looked the same again. So I've seen it firsthand.
Okay.
And yeah, we're talking about using a modified mini feller buncher. I don't know if a mini feller buncher does exist. It's been hard to find anything like that. It's possible it's out there. Innovation happens quickly when there's a need and a demand for it. So we're talking about a mini feller buncher that could essentially grab onto the poles on a skid steer with tracks. You do need tracks, and it has to cut it pretty low to the ground so that stump, the bamboo stump, doesn't damage these expensive treads. But you cut it down at the base. It's got a saw down there that goes zing when it's grabbed onto it, and then you just toss it back behind you. You got workers back there, they're going to grab it and then send it through a chipper, and it will be shipped off site at the farm gate in the form of wood chips.
Right, right.
And it doesn't matter if there's 1, 2, 3 year age species, or not species, but culms. They can be of, different ages, and that's not going to affect the quality of the paper.
Right. It's not like when you're harvesting for building material, you want to go in and select the oldest columns, which can
Exactly.
be labor intensive. You can't really do it with a machine. You need someone who's trained to recognize which columns are 2 years old versus ones that are 3 or 4 or 5 years old. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so there's a lot of advantages to that strategy for sure. If you have the right species that you can cut it down with, because as I understand, some species, especially the tropical species, don't really handle that as well, from what I'm told. But
Right. I don't, yeah, I don't know how I'm not sure about harvesting the clumps.
mm,
Because I think that a clumping species would be more damaged long term by clear cutting it like that, or strip harvesting it like that.
mm.
Possibly.
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with the tropical clumpers, so.
yeah. Someone recently told me that I think it was Old Hammy, that there was a farm in Brazil that was doing that for paper, and they were doing a similar like strip harvest method with
Mhm.
with clumping Bambusa Old Hammy.
Mm.
But I think that was the species, not 100%.
Mhm.
But I think it really varies from species to species whether or not it'll tolerate like doing that again and again. Like you can
Mm.
do it maybe a couple times, but then it'll really take a toll on the vitality of that clump.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
interesting. Um,
Show you too. I have a bamboo start here. This is
nice.
one of our 1 gallon Hennen plants, and it's ready to go in the ground. So this is, about 1 year old at this point, and they start out as tissue culture. And what I'm really excited to share about that is that another, National Bamboo has has invested in not only the research on the paper pulp, which we see as really being the bones of the industry here if it's going to pick up in a commercial industrial way, but the tissue culture, which is another key to the industrial bamboo revolution. So similar to many crop, I mean, our tissue culture lab grows over 10,000 species of plants, and they're based in Florida. But they told us that bamboo has been the trickiest plant to propagate more than anything. It is
Wow,
the You would think, oh, bamboo. Everyone thinks bamboo's so
that's
easy
like
to grow,
crazy.
and I hear a lot of people say, "I'm just going to go get a cutting out of." It's not going to work for if you want to establish a farm. If you want to plant these out on we recommend 9 by 16 foot spacing, and that allows for
Okay.
the creation of rows, and you can maintain a pathway even though it's going to be spreading out, and into that access path. You'll, at least because it's 16 feet between rows, you'll be able to continue to drive down that field as it's colonizing over the first 5 years. So this
Okay.
plant in 5 years is going to be getting to the point of full colonization of the field, in which it will become more difficult to traverse the field. But at that point, our oldest Hennen field is 4 years old, planted in October of 2019, and it's doing really well. Some of the shoots pictures I saw this year, they were 1 inch or more. So that's nice sizing up happening. A lot of people were concerned that the bamboo tissue culture Hennen would not size up very well.
Hmm.
It is, I can tell you, it is absolutely. It's looking really nice, and so yeah, we're not worried about. Yeah, every once in a while you get a plant here or there that's going to be kind of genetically epigenetics are like switches. They can be,
Mhm.
so sometimes a tissue culture plant, due to stressors or whatever, will its epigenetic code will switch to where it gets, kind of dwarfed. But when the environmental factors are right and the biology is right, that dwarfism can be, it can grow out of that. And also, that doesn't happen to every plant. It's not the norm. um, there's also another thing. A lot of nurseries in the US don't carry hennin right now because it's flowering. It's been gregariously flowering since
Right.
2017 or something like that.
Yeah.
And one thing, some interesting points we've noticed on that is this hennin, the mother is flowering.
Mhm.
So as you can see, this is not. And none of our tissue culture from the last few years is flowering, even though the mother stock, the original genetic stock, is flowering. So and that to me is evidence that we have in the lab. They performed a procedure that is beyond my capacity to explain scientifically, but they performed a procedure that essentially reverses the biological age. So it resets that biological rhythm, that genetic flowering rhythm. And so while the mother is gregariously flowering and all the hennin in the U.S. is flowering, our stock is not. And in the
Wow.
lab, we do see here and there, we see a, in vitro, a little hennin, their micro propagation. One of them might flower, and the lab,
Mhm.
they call that out. They get rid of it, and so they're selecting very quickly, able to select for, the right genetics. So it's only the best are, make it. And we have essentially, we really believe we have eliminated the issue of flowering for at least another 50 to 100 years with this genetic rootstock. So it's exciting.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to back up a little bit for people that aren't that familiar with henna and bamboo flowering. Hennin is well, hennin's a subspecies of Phylostachys nigra, which is pretty
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Black bamboo, which is super popular. Ornamental bamboo with the thin black poles. Hennin is considered to be a subspecies of that, which is odd because it's actually quite a bit bigger when it's
It
mature.
is.
I think
Yeah.
you have an example of that.
I
Of
do actually. Yeah.
recall. But I think all the Phylostachys nigras have been flowering in the last. Yeah, there we go. Huge, massive.
Yep.
That's,
Yep.
uh, so nigra, henan, and then there's a couple other subspecies of some, I think, black striped bamboos, cool, that have been
Yeah.
flowering. But I think henan typically flowers every like what 60 or 80 years, and then
Yeah.
it flowers gregariously. So all the henans everywhere, like just like you said, the last few years, they're all flowering at once. Maybe they started a little bit earlier on the West Coast or a little bit earlier. I don't remember. Um, but I think it's a little bit different, the pace on the West Coast versus the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember which one started first, if there's a pattern there, but it's been pretty much worldwide actually, in the last few years. So a lot of people have been sending me their pictures. What's going on with my bamboo? They think it's dying because it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't produce like beautiful flowers. It just looks like little wheat,
Yeah.
little grain, kind of like rice uh,
Grain head. Yeah.
flowers or something. Yeah. Um, so it looks strange if you haven't seen it before, and you might think your plant is dying or stressing
Yeah.
out or something, but
Yeah.
and it can stunt the growth of the plant.
Mhm.
In some cases it dies. Is henna one that dies after it flowers, or does it just kind of stunt the growth and then it comes back? Or
Don't I,
you know?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but I don't think that it's dying. I think that it's just a multi-year window where it's kind of stunted,
Yeah,
and
it's the energy
maybe
from the
takes a while to
flowers.
grow out of it. Yeah. It doesn't seem like, from all the flowers we've seen too, it doesn't, we're not finding any viable seed in that flower.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's pretty interesting too. Hmm.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
because the collecting seed, when you have a plant that flowers only every 60 or 80 years, collecting seed can be really something you really want to do
Hmm.
because the seeds don't come around that often. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's too bad that they're not the seeds aren't turning out to be viable. But
Hmm.
then another good reason to develop that technology for tissue culture,
Hmm.
because the seeds, even yeah, a lot of people have trouble with seeds even when they get viable seeds, or if you buy bamboo seeds on the internet and you think, oh, this is going to be a lot easier than taking a lot of cuttings, I'll just buy a big fat bag of seeds for $20 or $50 or something,
Right.
and they turn out to be the wrong species. Maybe it's not even bamboo, maybe
Yeah.
5% of them sprout. I've
Yeah.
heard a lot of unfortunate stories about that.
Yeah, yeah. Whenever you're starting something from seed, especially from such a primitive species of plant, that the seed is going to produce a lot of genetic variation. Even though it's all from one plant, you're going to plant a dozen seeds, and they all are going to have different characteristics. Whereas with tissue culture, you get uniformity. You get because these are essentially clones. So you get a very uniform plant stock.
Right, which is important if you're trying to farm it on a large scale. You
Hmm.
want to know that you can, yeah, you want some predictability. You know, want to
Hmm.
know what you can expect from every acre.
And another thing I wanted to show you too. So here's the Henan again, and Henan is very closely related to Moso, and Henan and Moso are the two probably most talked about. Obviously, Moso is the most well-known timber bamboo species because China has so much of it and has built its industry around it. Um, I have a piece of Moso here too from South Carolina, and look at this honker. Look at this. I mean, ooh, it's heavy, but it's significantly bigger. I mean, but that's impressive, right? This
That is,
is huge. It's almost 6, maybe 7 inches in diameter, and grown in South Carolina. So it looks like a tropical.
yeah, it does.
This is
Yeah,
obviously one of the larger culms in the field. I didn't,
it's
I
not the
picked the biggest
average
one for show,
bull, right? Okay.
but just to show the comparison. So you're growing Moso versus Henan, and obviously we would want a bigger species for the industrial purposes.
Hold on, yes.
However, why not Moso? Moso is more cold, or Henan is more cold hardy by far, at least 5 degrees. So that significantly um, increases our range of cultivation,
Right.
and and also Henan tends to be straighter, very nice straight culms versus Moso, which
Okay.
likes to sway and kind of curve and
Zigzag
droop.
sometimes.
Hmm.
So if you're growing it for a building material for construction purposes, Henan would in most cases be favorable because you want that straight
Yeah,
pull. In some
yeah.
cases, if you want something exotic for something
Hmm.
decorative, the zigzag can be cool. But yeah, if you
Hmm.
want consistent straight beams and things, you want those straight
Hmm.
pulls. And yeah,
Yeah,
not every
exactly.
species is perfectly straight. And
Hmm.
what about the wall thickness? Is the thickness of the walls, is that thicker on Henan? They look pretty close. It was a little bit hard to tell when you held it
Yeah,
up.
they're pretty close. It's the Henan is probably about a half an inch here on the base,
Nice.
and well, actually a little more than half an inch. It's more like half an inch at chest height,
Mhm.
and probably remains about a half an inch to 3/8 of an inch, for the first 10 to 12 feet. And then Moso, yeah, it's very similar. The base of Moso is really thick. That's almost an inch in thickness, and then it tapers to about a half an inch as well, or 3/4 of an inch. So they're pretty close.
Nice.
Pretty close.
Super cool stuff.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of running out of time here. We've been chatting for
Oh,
a
okay.
while. Really been
Yeah, yeah.
enjoying this.
I
Uh,
know.
I did. I know we could. Yeah, you get together with another
Yeah.
bamboo enthusiast, and you could, yeah, spend hours.
Yep.
And yeah, it's great. But I did want to ask you about the. You explained it a little bit before we started recording. The little. I'm sure everybody watching is wondering about the Buddha.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of recessed into the wall behind you,
Yeah.
and the Buddha is very cool. There's definitely a strong connection between bamboo and the Buddha. Um,
Hmm.
the uh,
Hmm.
the Far Eastern heritage and whatnot, and a lot of different symbolism behind bamboo that metaphorically can apply to Buddhism.
Yeah.
But without diving too deeply into that right now, can you explain to us how why is it like recessed into the wall? How did you
Yeah,
achieve
sure.
that?
So this is actually a straw bale house, and this Buddha just fit really nicely into this little shelf. But my walls are straw bales stacked like bricks. The frame is a timber frame, and and so all of the outer walls are straw bales, and then they have a coat um, of clay and sand and fiber plaster. So it's all natural. And I built this house in 2013,
Nice.
or starting in 2014 rather. And it took about 3 years. I was working part time, and then the rest of my free time was spent constructing my home. And it was a great project. I actually do have some bamboo integrated as nice accents to the windows and doors, and wall a wall cladding. In some cases like backsplash in the kitchen. It's pretty cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, how's that feel living in a house that you built yourself?
it's incredible. It's incredible, and
So it
it
must be.
feels really good in here, especially a natural home. The clay seems to have this property of almost purifying the air. It always smells really good,
Hmm.
and it's very warm. Straw bale house, very warm, and I'm in a what's considered temperate rainforest, and a lot
Okay.
of people might think, why would you build with straw? It'll rot. And my exterior plaster is also clay. So, I mean, if I held a hose on the wall, it would probably melt. But that never happens. And even we've had hurricanes hit the mountainous region here, and the wind is blowing the rain straight onto the wall, and it gets wet, dries out. It's fine. Nothing. It's been 2016 was when I finished the house, and it hasn't degraded or disintegrated or anything. It's not molding. It doesn't. There's no sign of any kind of rodents or insects living in the walls or
Right.
anything like that. It's
Good.
really nice. Yeah.
Nice. And I suppose you could always, maybe every 10 years or 15 years, do another layer of plaster on the exterior if you needed
Yeah.
to, which is,
Yeah.
standard for any house. You've got some maintenance, you got to do fresh
Yeah.
coat paint now and then. Uh,
Absolutely.
you said
And
it's
I love
very
this
warm.
style of building. It's incredible. Natural building has been a big fascination of mine, and another reason why I love bamboo is
Mhm.
because you can create some pretty cool structures in a low tech way. Obviously, in the U.S., I think if we're going to get into bamboo structures, companies like Renew Tech
Mhm.
are producing engineered, bamboo lumber that
Yeah, really nice
that
stuff.
can be really structural out of guadua.
Yeah.
And um and but but I really do like the whole round pole construction and the curves and the stuff you see in Bali with the green school and Ibuku, and you can incorporate clay and other fibers for insulation, and do wattle. It's called wattle and daub, where you use bamboo splits. So you would have like bamboo splits attached to your frame on both sides to kind of basket, create a lattice that will hold in your wall fiber, and you can plaster over that. So it's a
Okay.
great building method.
Nice. And
Yeah.
then I wanted to ask about the insulation on
Mhm.
straw bale homes is pretty incredible too, right? Because you got these super thick. So in the summertime, you stay pretty cool in there.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It feels like a cave in the summer. It's cool,
Yes.
and it remains cool all day long. By the evening, some of that radiant heat starts to come in through the wall a little bit,
Mhm.
and so the house is warm at night when the temperatures outside cool down, but
Mhm.
it's cool during the day, so it's really nice.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, yeah.
Nice. Um, well, Everest, it's been super fun talking with you. Like I said,
Absolutely.
we could go on and on. There's so many interesting things about bamboo farming, and it's really exciting to hear what National Bamboo is doing.
Yeah,
And yeah, just henin as a species,
yeah,
really interesting. Thanks for sharing about
absolutely.
that. Just the fact that it's such a great species. What I'm finding interesting is the um, just for cultivation because of its properties, the climates that it will grow in makes it an ideal species to grow in the southeast. It seems like the size is optimal,
Hmm.
and but you're saying also the quality of the fiber is optimal for paper as well because
It's
it's got that spectrum of hard and soft fiber,
mhm,
which is really important in paper and in bathroom tissue, for example. Uh,
mhm.
yeah, super interesting.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
I
we
would
did.
encourage anyone to get into bamboo farming that's thought about it, is interested in it, because, in the United States, there seems to be this perception that it's, invasive and we shouldn't grow it, but and it may have some invasive characteristics, but overall it's, I would say, easy to manage, and has so many benefits, not only for the climate, not only for the economy, but also human health. And so, the silica, the dietary fiber in the shoots, animal feed as an animal feed supplement, as a extract for cosmetics, and all of these things that are, there's so many ways we can utilize this plant, that you don't need to just be next to a pulp mill to grow
Right,
bamboo. And
right.
and I believe in American ingenuity, and I think that entrepreneurs will come up with ways to use this, and ways to capitalize on it, and provide a variety of commodities that are U.S. grown. Um, you know, so 1 billion people live in a bamboo house worldwide, not in
Mhm.
America, but worldwide. And so as things move forward, it's not a bad crop to have on your land. So
Yeah, there's a Chinese proverb, I think. Gosh, I don't remember exactly. Something about it's better to live in a house with no meat than a house with no bamboo, or something like that. Which, as a vegetarian, it's pretty easy for me to say that. But the point of the proverb is that there's so many things you can do with the bamboo that yeah, if you're not growing some bamboo around your house, then yeah, what are you waiting for? Because yeah, you could,
right,
it's just, yeah, so many uses for it. And like you said, you don't need to live around the corner from a paper mill for it to make sense. There's 1,000 different products that you could make on your own. There's ways to monetize it with small crafts or bamboo shoots, like
mm,
bamboo birdhouses,
yeah,
uh, different little small scale construction projects and things. It's just a matter of yeah, ingenuity and creativity, imagination, because it's just, yeah, super versatile. And like
yeah,
you said, the invasiveness is it's famous for that, but something as simple as a trench 4 inches
mm,
wide with straight walls about a foot and a half deep, and you've
mm-hmm,
pretty well solved that problem.
yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
mean, like the miscanthus thing, they're looking at miscanthus, which is a giant switchgrass, and that's way more invasive. I mean, it spreads by seed for
because the
miles.
seeds cast, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the
bamboo
invasive
doesn't do
stuff.
that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
bamboo doesn't do that.
Yep.
Again, yeah, we could keep going on and on for a while.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think we've been chatting for about an hour here,
Okay.
and really enjoyed it. Maybe we'll have to have you on again sometime, delving into
Sure.
some other aspects of bamboo. Uh,
Yeah.
I hope to see
Yeah.
you again at the bamboo event somewhere. Are you going to to Guatemala in, was it October? There's,
I would love to. We'll see. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. I will be at the American Bamboo Society conference. I'm going to be giving a couple of presentations there. That's November the 2nd through the 5th in Louisiana. And you can go to bamboo.org to see that schedule and everything and sign
okay,
up. But yeah, I'll be presenting there on the state of the bamboo industry. So we'll touch on some of what I just talked about, and also a little more research on the companies out there in the U.S. that are doing stuff with bamboo, and and have intent to use U.S. grown bamboo, right? So for things like yeah, wall panels and yeah, engineered lumber, particle board, and but then also the microbiome, because I think that's a really important part. The microbiome of bamboo is an important aspect to grow it naturally to help save our soil and and to yeah, to reduce our use of chemicals. So I'll be talking about the bamboo microbiome, and especially from a farming perspective and the industry in the U.S.
nice, nice. That's November 2023 in
Yeah.
Louisiana. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think there's going to be a lot more bamboo events coming up. The industry is really kind of at this point of critical mass, it seems like, where people are recognizing it's time to really get serious about alternative resources and energy sources and lumber sources and building material sources. And bamboo just ticks a lot of the right boxes. So, yeah, thank you again. It's been a real
Thanks.
pleasure, and
Yeah,
hope to see you soon.
absolutely. Go if anybody's curious, go check out nationalbamboo.com, and you can read more about what we're doing,
We'll put
and
links
hit us
down
up
below
if
and
you
you
want to
can
grow
show them.
bamboo.
Nice. All right. Thank you, Forrest.
Awesome. Thanks, Fred.